Da, 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 da.
Lives is such a strange word, especially when you print it out. I've been writing somebody about something. Yes. Yeah. It's like, now live from New
Now
York.
live. Live from New York. It's the Maltins. With, oh my gosh, I hadn't even seen all the books that came down. Good. Well, no wonder they fell.
Well,
it's a lot of books.
I know all those shelves are heavy.
I
Laden, I think the word is laden with books.
Heavily laden.
Yeah.
Heavily done laden mid books. There was this crash the other day. And we heard this loud noise.
Were you downstairs?
I was downstairs.
So Jesse was one floor below.
Yeah.
Alice and I were one flat above.
So our house is it's not very big this way, but it's 3 stories this way. So I live in the cave. Middle Earth is what I call this area, which is where we meet to eat food and see each other. And then my parents are upstairs. And we heard this crazy noise and checked, is everybody okay? Did anybody fall? Did something break? What's going on? Nothing. We couldn't find anything. Later on, my husband came home from work and said, one of your dad's bookshelves collapsed. I said, what? And we looked, and one of the bookshelves here in this room just gave up on life.
Yeah. Well,
collapsed.
They are holding a lot of books.
They're holding a lot of books.
And it's the kind of shelf. These are not handcrafted shelves. These are shelves with those kind of plug-in, sometimes metal, sometimes plastic. What do you call them? Pegs?
Pegs.
Something like pegs.
Pegs.
And they're meant to hold, a fair amount of weight. But this was unfair amount.
I think the amount of book weight you put on these shelves. No, thankfully nothing broke. Nothing got hurt. Nothing broke. We just now have one of our couches is now covered in books until we can fix that shelf. Oh dear. So I didn't realize how many went down. Thank God it's not the one below.
Yeah. So that one only has half as many books on it.
Well, I know, but I mean.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, I'm pointing at collectibles because I'm saying thank God one of your rarest.
Yep.
Which you never share actually.
Well, we haven't done a tour at all.
No, I know, but you've always been very funny about that particular piece. You don't share that piece. Is this mysterious enough for you?
Anyway.
Will you share that piece?
Yeah, I would, sure.
Would you?
Yeah.
Shall I go get it?
Now that you've made such an issue
I'm just saying. And happy Sunday to all of you.
Hello, everybody.
No baby yet, I see. You're correct. There is no baby yet. No contractions.
But soon.
Yes. My C-section is October 26th. So in 9 days, 9 whole days, there will be another person in the family.
And what floor will they be on the ground floor? Will they be on the?
Yeah, right. Where will they live? And again,
where was she? We know what her pronoun is.
Yeah,
she.
She is a she. Until she tells us otherwise.
That's right.
She's a she, which I'm okay with. Is it the Maltese Falcon? No. Well, see now I'm tempted to just not show it and just let you guess what we have. No, I'll go get it. 1 second, my friends. Do you want to show them what you're holding?
Well, I'm holding some recent arrivals. This aired on Turner Classic Movies last week. It's an hour-long documentary called This is Francis X. Bushman, directed by Lon Davis. And Lon and his wife, Deborah, also just published a book, Francis X. Bushman, King of the Movies. And it's about a largely forgotten silent film star who was of the first generation of stars during the silent era,
arm pillow,
and who lived a long life. I remember when he made an appearance on the Adam West Batman TV series. So he spanned several eras. Very interesting.
Pretty darn cool. So just to show you this, and as I say, you've never shown anyone this.
Well, it's
you've never shown anyone this.
This is a prototype.
Yes.
It's a prototype for a piece that was scheduled to go into production, and there were some issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't go into
Hi,
production.
Dava. Dava Savell.
Hey,
Hi,
Dava. Nice to see your name sitting there. Hello.
Okay, so this guy here.
It's a vase. Well, it's really a piece of decor, but
yes,
it's technically a vase.
And you know you live in LA when you've got sticky stuff on the bottom.
Yep.
So that in the earthquakes they don't fall.
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, it's Mickey, of course, shaking Leopold Stokowski's hand.
Yep.
As depicted in Fantasia.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful piece. And I believe there was some issue with the Stokowski
there was a thing
or
with
something
rights.
like that. Yeah.
What used to happen for my dad back in the day is sometimes when he would do stuff for Disney, when he'd work for Disney, they would offer to let you sort of go into either one of the stores or something like that and say, you know, you can pick something. Like, so you're not just getting your check or whatever it is. We'd like to give you something special.
Well, this was when they had a stream of their products going to the Disney Gallery.
Yes, which was
the high-end items for the high-end Disney collector.
Yeah.
And
some stuff not crazy high-end. You know, some stuff not super
high-end
expensive.
is a funny euphemism. Expensive.
Yeah, expensive. Some stuff was not ridiculous. Other things were more ridiculous. But they said, you know, what would you like? And you said, I want that. And initially they said no.
They needed to get approval.
Yeah. They said, no, we can't give that away because we don't really know what's going on and if it's legal and all this sort of stuff.
It was only one of 5 or at most 10 that was produced.
They made 20. I remember this well. They made 20
Better
of
than I
them.
do, obviously.
And only 3 were in the United States. 17 were outside. I do remember it well.
Yeah.
There were only 3 in the United States. And so he had to get permission. And they said yes. And we've had it for years. But again, because it was a whole thing, you never really showed it or shared it anywhere. I feel like this is one of those where like maybe like in law, I think the time has passed. I think it's been long enough.
Statute of limitations.
Yes, I think the statute of limitations has passed. You're probably okay at this point. But yeah, so that's one of my favorite pieces that we have.
It's wonderful piece, and the fact that it's so rare.
Oh yeah,
you're not going to see it likely anywhere else.
Well,
and if the person who facilitated our acquisition is tuned in today, it's not that we've forgotten who you are. We don't want to incriminate you if
I don't know who got it for you.
Oh well, I'll tell you later.
You'll have
Anyway,
you'll have to tell me. But yeah, hi puppies. Have you seen the latest James Bond? Yes, we spoke about it a bit last week.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not too much because people are still seeing it, so you don't want to spoil anything.
I would recommend it. I think it's very entertaining. I just think it's too long. It's needlessly long.
You made a lot of our friends who subscribe. By the way, my dad, we do an email blast whenever my dad posts on his website. You can always sign up for that, and that way you'll know when he does have new stuff there.
And it's free.
But he posted his review, and a lot of our friends got a kick out of what you titled that particular review, which was Plenty of Time to Die. Because it was too long. So,
but he's very good. Daniel Craig's very good in it, and the supporting players don't have very much to do actually, which was a mild disappointment because I like the new ensemble that they've gathered.
Yeah. Have you seen Last Duel? No. Do you know the thing is, and this is actually something that we're going to talk about today. There has been this big shift and change around these parts because a lot of folks are not doing screenings in the same way that they used to.
In this case, they did.
Yeah, I'm saying
it's
multi-part in that. Here you go. It's multi-part. A lot of film critics still don't feel comfortable going to a movie theater, even a screening. And the difference, of course, with screening being it's sort of more, it's a controlled environment.
Right, with a finite number of people.
Yeah. most of whom it's other film critics and friends and things like that. But some folks just don't feel comfortable going to the movies yet. And again, that is your right. You should do whatever
Your
makes
prerogative, certainly.
you should do whatever makes you feel comfortable. But also, the studios are still trying to figure out how they want to do things. Do you want to have them get screeners? Do you want to have them do links? I hate links because 97% of the time they don't work, or they stop working halfway through.
All these
It's a
things
whole
have
thing.
Yes. In my case, now I can only speak for me. For a good part of Jessie's life, she has known that many, if not most evenings, Alice and I are going out to a screening.
Yep.
Sometimes driving nearby, sometimes driving way across town, where Sony and 20th Century Fox, no, 20th Century.
Oh, please.
Anyway.
Yes, Victoria, we're going to get to the IATSE thing. We will get to that, yes.
And you're used to doing this mainly for big movies, but I also want to see indie films, foreign language films, documentaries, all sorts of films. And I've gotten out of the habit. A habit formed over many years' time, but rather abruptly unformed by the pandemic. And I haven't yet gotten back into the swing of doing this, of just going because it's there to be seen.
Though you guys did go to a movie last week. You saw Cyrano.
Oh, yes, that's right. A film we had missed at the Telluride Film Festival that we heard good things about.
Both my parents went.
And directed by, a brain gets eaten away. Joe Wright.
There you go.
Faster than your thumb.
Yeah, I was ready. I was IMDbing. But
directed by Joe Wright and starring Peter Dinklage, and written as a musical play by Peter Dinklage's wife.
Yes.
And performed to great acclaim in London and New York. And
and got pretty mixed. It's been interesting. It's gotten pretty mixed reviews. And so I wasn't sure what they were going to think.
It's not opening here till the new year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They're having preview showings, and also for the purpose of promoting Peter Dinklage as a potential Best Actor nominee, certainly.
Yep.
And yes, he has earned that. It is a beautiful and poignant and sometimes heartrending performance that he gives as Edmond Rostand's hero, who this time is not hampered by an oversized nose, but by his lack of height.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Alice found the film too slow, and I can't disagree. But to see him compensates or even overcompensates for any flaws. Yeah, it's a beautiful performance.
So you did go see a movie.
Yes, we did.
Which is great. But yeah, it's a strange time. So you're not seeing stuff. Normally, you would be going to screenings regularly.
I'd be saying yes more readily.
Normally you'd be going to different screens. The other part at the moment is he's not allowed to drive because of his arm. If you don't know, my dad had shoulder surgery, and he still isn't allowed to drive yet. And this is actually a pandemic thing. A lot of screenings, because they're trying to keep the numbers down in the actual screening rooms, in many cases, they're not saying yes to +1s. And so for him to get to a screening at the moment, he needs either me or my mom or my husband to drive him to go with him. And you can't necessarily get +1s. So it's all, again, it's just a very, very strange time. And we're not keeping up with movies the way that we normally would.
But this week we did keep up with 2 new Blu-ray releases from from the unstoppable
we should have a pneumatic tube.
Yeah,
that goes from their office to here, because it's just nonstop.
I watched 2 films that I'd seen so long ago it was as if I'd never seen them. It's kind of like loss of amnesia, movie amnesia. Mm-hmm. Making new friends every day. So we watched Claude Rains in The Mystery of Edwin Drood,
Yep.
a Universal picture, presented by Carl Laemmle, and with you can't dislike any movie that opens with that airplane going around the globe. And it says, it's a Universal picture at the end. And it always says, a good cast is worth repeating at the end.
I like that.
Yeah. And this is The Secret of the Blue Room with Paul Lucas and the breathtakingly beautiful Gloria Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Just to gaze at her in this movie is reason enough to watch it, but not necessarily to recommend it.
There are a lot of movies you watch because you need to have watched them.
Yeah.
And then you never have to watch them again.
Yeah. My review in my own classic movie guide is a little too kind.
You love film. Gloria.
Yeah,
what are you going to do?
I do. And so those are our latest Blu-ray viewing. In terms of books, this is a book. I know so many people who write movie books.
Yes.
But this is certainly unique. This is by an old friend who I haven't seen in a long time, Sam Sherman. Sam Sherman, who made and released his films to a company called Independent International, II. And yes, this is the man who brought us Satan's Sadists, and When Dracula Met Frankenstein, and the unforgettable Blazing Stewardesses, which was the film that was to have featured the Three Stooges until one of them got sick, and then another one got sick, and they wound up with the two remaining Ritz brothers. And to be fair, I think it may be on YouTube, their key performance scene, which I just showed you, is great. It's absolutely great. The surrounding film, less so. But Sam has good stories to tell. He hired movie veterans wherever and whenever he could. And he earned his way into my heart by editing Screen Thrills Illustrated, which was a companion magazine to Forrest Ackerman's famous Monsters of Filmland. Didn't have nearly as long a life or as big a circulation. But those of us who like serials and other vintage films of the B variety are in his debt forever. Sam's new book, When Dracula Met Frankenstein.
Which is good because Bruno just asked if you had any book recommendations. So that is an excellent example there. What else? I'm trying to think what else you've been reading. My dad's always reading. I know I say this every time. He's always reading something.
Well, I just finished a new book, non-film book. I felt like a little fiction in my life. And I took, at an airport, I actually grabbed the new Michael Connelly book.
Right. Yeah.
Or the newest Michael Connelly book. And he's such a compelling writer. He really is a master. And so I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that. And I'm about to start something else. I'm just going to get myself some too.
Wet your whistle.
Wet my whistle and unparch my voice.
Yes.
Which is finally unparched at the conclusion of recording my audio.
The whole audiobook for Starstruck, which... My, oh my, what an adventure that has been. Sorry, did you see Belfast? We did. We saw Belfast in Telluride. I think my mom liked it most. We both liked it, but did not love it.
But liked it.
Yeah, liked it. Definitely liked it. Scott Iman's new book. Yes.
Oh, Scott Iman's new book on Cary Grant. Superb.
And you've read, I think you've read all of Scott's books.
I think I've read all of Scott's books, and they tend to render other existing books on the same subjects redundant.
Yeah. He's very much a one-stop shop. And in part because he works on them for so long and they're huge.
Yeah.
We had Scott on our podcast a few months ago.
Yeah. Worth digging out. That's a good interview.
You two have been friends years and years.
Well, yeah. Many years.
So they're it's fun.
We both started young. We both got hooked
on
old movies when we were teenagers, and now we're not anymore.
Yeah,
but we're still friends.
We interviewed R.L. Stine not that long ago, or as I was introduced to him, Bob Stein. And you've known R.L. / Bob Stein for 40
Well, we're married
some
46
years.
years, so over 40 years.
Yeah. And again, it's so funny, but New Yorkers and authors, they go way back. Yeah, but the first time that I got to I meet Bob, my dad introduced him as Bob, and when he left, my dad goes, that's R.L. Stein, and I went, you didn't tell me that was R.L. Stein, because anybody around my age, everybody read Goosebumps. You had to, and all the various series that went with it. Someone's asking again about No Time to Die. Yes, my dad liked it, didn't love it. It was too long. One second. Hi, Leonard. I've just started reading your new book, Starstruck, My Unlikely Road to Hollywood. Yay. And absolutely love it. I compare it as wonderful and engaging as Roger Ebert's book, Life Itself. That's very kind.
That's a lovely compliment. Thank you.
I've been reading him all of your comments. I've read my dad all of the comments that you guys have been posting about reading the book and enjoying it. And I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. He really worked hard. And I love all of his stories. And I find them fascinating. So,
Well, it's a little, I won't say surreal, that word gets overused, but it's an unusual feeling to have people responding to the book now, because I've lived with it for at least a year and a half from the time I started actually writing it in earnest. And then proofing it and going through all the preliminary stages of getting it ready for publication. And now there it is, and people are now responding to me and to my stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so rewarding.
Well, it's the most personal book it's the first personal book, really, that you've ever written. My dad is an old school journalist in the sense that he's not used to talking about himself. You don't say, when you're training, you don't say I. Journalists were initially trained. You don't say things like I think, I felt. And, one of the biggest shifts for you in your writing has been making it more personal, because people really like it. People really prefer more of that personal touch.
And the other extreme of that is social media.
Of course.
Where it's all about I.
Yep, exactly. We're all about I. But yeah, so that's been a big, hi puppy. But that's been a big thing. But yeah, I'm so happy. And we're going to be heading over this week to Larry Edmonds to sign all of the books that you guys have bought from him. Thank you so much for helping.
That's Larry Edmonds Bookshop, if you don't know it, on Hollywood Boulevard. It's a longtime home. And Larry Mentor.
Jeff Mentor.
Larry.
It's okay, Jeff Mentor.
There was a Larry Edmonds.
Yes.
He died many, many years ago, and others have maintained the name because it had already established itself in the late 30s, early 40s, and has an interesting history. You can go to their website and read that history. It's very interesting and provocative.
And some great photos too, because it's been on Hollywood Boulevard for so long.
Yeah, it used to be in the neighborhood, and then moved at least once on the boulevard. But it's been in its present location for decades.
Long time. But yeah, again, and if you want to buy my dad's book, that's a great place to buy it, because you're supporting a real brick and mortar bookstore, a place that, Jeff, who runs it, works so hard. And you can get it signed by this one, personalized. And
it's been a mecca for film buffs.
Yeah.
And movie lovers and movie collectors for years. First time I walked in there, I think it was 17 or 18 years old. Just my jaw dropped looking around at the posters and the stills and all the memorabilia, etc.
And if you do live in LA, or if you're making a trip to LA, I recommend going to the bookstore because it's wonderful. And in normal times, he's still doing some of them. In normal times, though, Jeff has book signings constantly. And he gets all kinds of people to come through.
Yes.
And if you attend the TCM Film Festival, he's the one who provides all the books that everyone signs. He really is a part of this world.
Yeah. People talk about engagement. He is fully engaged.
Yeah, he really works his butt off, and he deserves all the credit in the world. Justin says, I recently bought 5 Bela Lugosi films on DVD for $1. Good job. Any favorites?
I'll watch Bela Lugosi in damn near anything. I just love his presence. I love his, not just his voice,
Yeah.
but his presence. By the way, Paul Lucas, who stars in The Secret of the Blue Room with Gloria Stewart, was also Hungarian, and a very talented mimic who was not only a good impressionist, but a student of vocal impressions. Said, if you listen carefully, they speak in the same voice.
Mm-hmm.
One has just a different emphasis than the other, but they're both Hungarians who learned English as a second language.
So interesting. It's a fantastic book filled with so many great stories. I'm so thankful for this piece of work and its contribution to Hollywood and the film business. Wishing you guys the best. Jesse, love you guys. Thank you, Addie. That's one of my oldest friends. I appreciate that, Adam, very, very, very much. But yeah, it's history.
Yeah.
What can you do? But yeah, Bela, there's never a bad time. So hopefully you watch all of them and you enjoy them very much.
Even though most of those films stink.
Yeah.
But
details. Hi, Mr. Maltin. I've gotten into old 3D Blu-ray movies, especially It Came from Outer Space and Black Lagoon, a classic Universal with Richard Carlson. Again, never a bad time.
No.
Never a bad time.
Those were Universal's best efforts at 3D. And there's that explosion near the beginning of a creature, with the like a meteor shower coming at the screen. That's great. That's just great. And some of the underwater scenes of the underwater ballet with Julie Adams swimming in that white bathing suit with the creature below her, the Gill Man. Those are really neat.
And we mentioned last week that we just watched the special features,
on The Incredible Shrinking Man.
And they go into that. They go into the discussion of the creature and, the amount of work that went into both the costume, but also for the person in the costume, holding his breath underwater, doing that ballet scene, all kinds.
Yeah, that's part of the background bonus feature on the Criterion release, the new Criterion release of The Incredible Shrinking Man, also directed by Jack Arnold.
Yeah.
And that's what ties it all together.
But man, that was fascinating. And it's true. We got to see, again, it's the TCM Film Festival. We got to see Creature not that long ago.
In 3D, a couple of years ago.
And I have to say, it holds, especially visually, it holds up remarkably well. Because you still watch it and think, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Knowing that you don't have things like computer generated graphics, all that kind of stuff. It's really amazing to watch. Let's see. Straight Time had just got released on Blu-ray for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I think it's an underrated film that Dustin Hoffman starred in, and I think it's one of his best performances.
I think he does too. I think he agrees with that assessment. Yeah.
What is the oldest book that you own?
Oh, I recently started sorting and sifting some of my earliest film. I have film books as early as 1912, I think. 1915, 1916. There were quite a few in the teens. As movies established themselves in public life, in general life, people were curious about them. Curious about how to sell them, how to sell a story to the movies, how to write a screenplay, what they call the photoplay in those days. So there were more books than you might expect for such a young industry.
Yeah. And, who doesn't love old books? I mean, truly, even just opening them, looking at them, touching the pages, there's just nothing better. How has it been releasing a book during COVID time?
Well, actually, now that although we're promoting Larry Edmunds' bookshop and do that with great enthusiasm, it's no secret you can buy books online and have them delivered the next day, and so many people do use Amazon and other BarnesandNoble.com and other services like that it doesn't really make that big a difference.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, honestly, is just how you do press.
Even that.
No, I know, but but you're Zooming. You wouldn't have been Zooming.
No.
You wouldn't be doing all that stuff. There's a lot more stuff you'd be doing in person.
Yeah.
Even things like book signings. At the moment, my hope is that maybe you'll be able to do an event in December or something like that.
But can't plan.
But yeah, you just can't plan anything.
Planning is futile.
So I think that's probably the biggest change for doing.
But I've been
anything
doing lots of podcast interviews.
Oh yeah, lots of different
radio
stuff.
interviews.
Yeah.
I've been on KTLA with Sam Rubin, which a lot of
Yep.
people saw. This week, leading morning show in LA, and I'm doing the other
leading morning
show this coming week, Good Day Live, and there are more scheduled. So I seem to be hitting all the media of the various. A lot of people don't know that media is the plural of medium.
Yeah, don't confuse everyone. It's all right. Jeff ordered his signed copy from Larry Edmonds yesterday. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much. And as I say, so do they over there. Have you been to the Academy Museum yet? Technically, yes.
Technically, yes, but we haven't really toured the museum properly.
Yeah.
We went to a preview night where there are so many people we knew and hadn't seen since before pandemic time that we spent the whole time schmoozing with friends, reacquainting ourselves with people. And to our embarrassment, we realized at the end of the evening that
they hadn't really looked at
hardly any of the museums. So comments will be withheld until we have that opportunity.
Sid remember what Sid Ganis said to me the other day?
What?
Come see the museum, but leave the baby at home. Thanks, Sid. Comment on Marcia Hunt. Saw Leonard on TCM in the special today. Yes.
I'm very glad to be in that special, which was the brainchild and baby of Roger Memos, with whom I used to work at Entertainment Tonight many, many years ago. And Marcia is a remarkable woman. She is a remarkable woman. I'm tempted to call her ageless. And the calendar says she's 104, but she has such grace as well as charm and intelligence, and she incorporates all that into living every day. And I just think the world of her. And I'm glad that documentary now exists to celebrate her, and that she got to see it, and know that people appreciate her.
Yeah. I mean, 104 is a pretty solid life.
Yeah.
But she's also the type where if you ask anybody, they all have really lovely stories with her, lots of very happy memories, and that's always a good thing. Okay, now that we're on the subject, Hammer films or Universal? The 59 Mummy film is still my favorite Mummy film.
For me, Universal. I never really caught on to the Hammer films when they were new. And I remember seeing a double feature, which included the 62 version of Phantom of the Opera with Herbert Lom. And I just thought, at age 12 or 11, I thought it was so dull. I'd already seen the Lon Chaney silent film. And to me, this was just not in the same league. I have Blu-rays now of almost all of the Hammer films. I really need to go on a project.
Yes.
And reacquaint myself, or in some cases acquaint myself with the whole Hammer library.
It's, there's so, it sounds silly to say it, but there's so many movies just in general, and there's so much to learn, and you're always learning, and you're always discovering new parts of history.
Yep.
Stuff gets brought up, and that's why things like, what's it called? Frozen in Time. What's that documentary you're talking about? Blanking?
Yep. No, I know the one you mean, about the films buried under the tundra.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Frozen in Time something. It's a documentary. But yeah, people are constantly finding things. And so with something like that, with the Hammer films versus Universal, I think it's just what you found first in many cases.
Yeah.
This goes back to the beginning. There's still always the conversation of who's your Bond. And I will repeat this over and over again. I really do think that your Batman, your Superman, your James Bond, whoever, is the first one you see. Only because if you close your eyes and you think about it and I go, okay, who's my Superman? I go to George Reeves. That's where my mind goes immediately, because that's the first Superman I saw. For me, Bond is Sean Connery because he's the first Bond I saw. And you've said that Adam West is your Batman. And that doesn't mean that they're the best.
Although I just learned something this week, talk about learning new things.
Yeah.
Michael Wilson who co-owns James Bond, is the son of the somewhat obscure B-movie actor Lewis Wilson, who played Batman in the 1943 serial and didn't have a great career after that.
The more you know. That's cool.
It is cool.
That's a cool tidbit. I like that. Hi, Jesse and Leonard. Just discovered your podcast recently. Absolutely love it. And recently saw Citizen Caine and was blown away by Orson Welles' performance. Well, thank you so much for listening.
Mhm.
I'm so glad you enjoy it. We love doing it. It has not been nearly as much fun having to do it via Zoom, but we're grateful that we can continue anyway.
Yep.
And Citizen Caine, yeah. I mean, again, even if the movie doesn't work for you as a whole, you know, we talked about that. It's tough when someone says, "Here's the greatest film ever. Now watch it."
Yeah.
I think that regardless of that aspect, you have to watch Orson Welles and go, well then.
Yeah, and he's well, when he made the film and acted in it, he was probably still 24.
Yeah. Which is
A 24-year-old playing all different ages.
Yeah.
Credibly, you know, with the makeup that was available then. They didn't have the kind of sophisticated prosthetics and advanced, you know, ideas,
Yeah.
or the benefit of experience. But he, you know, that makeup is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
It's done by a guy named Maurice Schneiderman, who Welles called on for years. Orson Welles, not unlike Laurence Olivier, almost never used his own nose.
And you know, it's that kind of stuff though that you have to try to watch something. Your phrasing is you have to meet it on its own terms.
Yeah.
So if you watch something and go, why doesn't this look more impressive? You go, well, what could you do in 1930, 1940, 1950? You know, it's impressive what they were able to come up
To
with.
me, Citizen Caine is impressive, period.
Yes. Robert says, any thoughts about the Alice Guy Blaché, the first woman film director? That documentary, I think, personally sent hundreds of humans to go see.
It's so good.
Because you wouldn't stop talking about it because it was so important, you know. And you saw it in Telluride.
Yep.
With your pals, some who work at the Academy in the archive. Basically all your nerdiest of film friends. They all went in the morning and saw it.
We were all
knocked
impressed.
out.
We were all impressed, and we learned from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Rachel's saying that she agrees that the first one you see is your
Mhm.
person. It is, as I say, it's just one of those funny things. And again, it doesn't mean that someone is better than someone else. It's just, you know, your childhood and your memories are attached in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the same way that you know, for some people, as soon as they start to hear the Jurassic Park theme, they're taken back to whatever age they saw it first. You know, things like that. It's just yeah, we're attached. Adam rewatched Caine the other night, and thoughts on Mank.
Mank, I found a snooze, and a lot of its conclusions spurious.
Yeah.
And it didn't fill in some of the blanks that I thought for sure it would.
No.
To explain the relationship between Welles and Herman Mankiewicz, and
it made so many it made some very specific references, but so specific that if you don't know what they're talking about, you wouldn't know what they're talking about.
Context free.
Yeah. I said, that's one of the first things I said as we were watching it was, who's going to understand what that reference is? You know, and who's going to understand when they're moving this, why they're moving it. So yeah, that was, to me, Mank was a big disappointment, unfortunately.
Whereas Citizen Caine, every time I watch,
yeah,
it blows me away, and I see things I didn't see the last time.
Yeah. Maybe a silly question, but did any of the Debbie Reynolds items make it to the Academy Museum? Probably.
That's a very valid question, and I don't know the answer, so I don't want to guess wrong.
Because I know they have ruby slippers. The answer is probably, but we don't know for sure. Now, just to go back a turn for a second here, something that we had talked about that a number of you have asked about is, first of all, IATSE and what all just went on with the very near strike that we all had.
It's called brinkmanship.
Yeah. To me, it was chicken, is what it was. It was two groups playing chicken and seeing who was going to go first. And thankfully, for the sake of business and everything else, they gave in.
Yes, for the sake of continuity
Yeah.
and being able to pay your rent.
And people not being out of work
Yeah.
again, having just been out of work for such a long time.
I'm glad, there already is an article in today's I think it's newspaper.
Mhm.
I read some stuff online, speculating whether or not the rank and file will approve this.
Yeah.
And
It's a whole.
it's a not an invalid point to wonder about, but I hope it works for everybody.
Yeah.
Obviously, nothing's going to please everyone.
No.
But
And the shortest explanation I can give you, if you were wondering about sort of what the whole fuss was, is that what has happened, and everything's always affected. Every piece affects something else. You have, as long as I have been alive, crews have worked overtime and too much. This has always been the case. And when I worked in television and did some movie stuff with friends, and I worked on sets and I was a PA or I was in the art department, whatever, you just knew you were going to be working crazy hours. You just sort of accepted that that's what it was and that's how it works. But
there's no real reason why.
Yeah.
And the only real reason why is that somebody's trying to save money.
And that's what it comes down to.
Follow the money.
Yeah, always.
I had dinner with a friend who's a director of long standing last night, and who's worked into the television era and the streaming era. And he was talking about how they were trying to plot out this TV movie that he was making, bearing in mind the 12-hour turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that if you work somebody until midnight,
you cannot legally bring them in until noon the next day.
Right. Now, people bend that into pretzels. They said, well, you can call them at 11 a.m. to show up at noon, but how much do you build in the travel time?
The first time I was at the only time I've ever been fired. I was working for a company. I was working for a TV production company, and for a straight week, we didn't have lunch breaks. And I mean, we were working 15 hours straight and barely sleeping, or sleeping on location, or in your car. Like, it was just, you were just getting it done. And I went to my boss, and this is the other thing, is there's many bosses, but I went to my boss.
And you thought that this person would be sympathetic.
Was a decent human being, is what I thought.
Yeah.
And I said, look, a bunch of us PAs, because PAs are the bottom of the bottom.
They used to be called gophers.
Yeah, they used to be called gophers. PAs, you just, they get abused. They just do. But part of it is it's sort of seen as like a rite of passage. I've been the one that brings someone a Diet Coke every hour on the hour. Things like that. You just get it done. And so I went to this person and I said, there's like 10 of us who have not had even so much as a bathroom break for days. And I think it would only be fair that we get lunch penalties. Mind you, a lunch penalty can be like $12, maybe 20. And I said, I just think that it would mean a lot to everybody if we did this. And she said, I completely agree with you. You guys have been working your butts off. Put in put it onto your time cards that you all didn't have lunch. And, that way you'll get your extra money. And as I say, it would have come to per person like $80 for the week. Nothing. It was just the idea of it. We put in our time cards and we were never called again. We weren't even fired properly. No, they just completely disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't do anything as simple as hiring and firing.
They just.
Oh dear. Very seat of the pants. Strong union. Those dogs.
But yeah, I'd say we didn't get fired. They quite literally fell off the face of the planet. And the person who I was working for, I tried calling her And I said, "What's going?" None of us got call sheets. None of us got anything for the following week. And they said, "Oh, yeah." Either didn't answer the phone or went straight to voicemail.
Also, made you falsify time cards.
Well, yeah, that's every job I had.
Yeah.
That's truly that's every film and TV job I had. They made us lie on our time cards. But anyway, so what has happened now is that people have reached a point where it's like this just can't be the way anymore, and it's just getting worse. And I think the hardest thing is to see the kind of money that is being spent on productions
Yeah.
and going, yeah, but none of it's getting to the people who are working. It's like, oh, this film got another $20 million and that's all going to the star, which is great if you're a star. But everyone working on the film or the TV show, whatever it is, what are they getting? And again, because it's just understood that you will work your butt off nonstop.
Years ago, Alice and I went to a screening of The Lady Killers, the Coen brothers remake of the 50s British classic. And there was an actor, a very sparsely attended screening. And we struck up a conversation with the fellow attendee who turned out to be not a bit player, but, supporting actor of no great renown.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how wonderful it was working for the Coen brothers, who like to have dinner at home.
Yep.
And see, there are people who can make that happen and who insist on a civilized production schedule and who plan on it.
Yeah.
It's no surprise, no shock.
Yeah. Do you remember what Bruce Campbell said?
No.
We interviewed Bruce Campbell, and he was shooting Ash vs. Evil Dead in New Zealand, the TV show. And he said that it was the first time you could make dinner reservations every night. Because the way they worked in New Zealand was they got there and everybody worked really, really hard from, let's say, 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. They really churned it out. They worked their butts off, knowing that when end of day was happening, that was it. And they could go home to their families or have dinner with friends or whatever it was. And the sad part is that should be the case for everybody.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the kind of thing where you're exhausted. First of all, again, it can be very dangerous. If you're working crazy hours again and again and again, you can get hurt. You can hurt someone else. It's a dangerous thing to do, but it's also just cruel. And so that was really what was happening with this whole strike, was that finally, the crews said, we can't do this anymore. And you have to give. You've got to give back somewhere because this is just not going to work. And so my hope, as always, is that this actually changes something. We will see. We won't know until it's happening. But at least for all of our friends and family who are still involved in this industry, fingers crossed, it gives them some peace, The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this comes up because yesterday you had a LAFCA meeting.
Yeah.
LAFCA is the LA Film Critics Association, which you've been a member for many, many years. And here is, again, where the pandemic has changed so much. The way that it works to be nominated for Oscars is that a film must show for a week in LA, New York, Chicago, basically the big ones, your big cities, has to show for 1 week. That's what used to make it eligible for an Academy Award. And several of the other shows were similar. Some of them had similar criteria. But it varied. Well, that all had to change because of the pandemic. You couldn't open films in theaters. So they had to modify. Then you come to something like LAFCA, where the criteria to get in used to be.
Well, there's nothing formal. You were endorsed or recommended by a member or several members, and then you submitted samples of your work. In the old days, those were tear sheets out of newspapers and magazines. And at one time, LAFCA, I think I was their first television critic.
You were.
To be admitted. And that was on the recommendation of Caine, who just recently retired from the LA Times as senior film critic there. But there was a sort of a snobism about anything that wasn't in print. And eventually, that had to give way because print is vanishing as we speak. And we're fighting the good fight, but it's going the way of the dodo bird. Yeah. And so eventually they started accepting blogs and websites and other aggregations of.
But even that was tricky because is it, so does it count as being professional if it's through IndieWire, if it's through the LA Times Online, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you consider if someone just has a blog themselves, does that mean that they're published? If you're self-publishing,
right,
does that make it count?
Well, I hope so, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, but again, this is part of what I find so interesting is that you have these shifts. Well, again, here comes the pandemic, and now the LA film critics, as they're looking to, people will submit, to become a part of the group. And so, okay, what is the criteria now when so many people are out of work? When so many publications have, if not folded, changed completely.
Changed their emphasis, cut back.
Yep. And again, for a number of people, they're just not going to screenings in the same way. In part because for some parts of last year, screenings didn't exist. Months, screenings didn't exist. And then it got back to being links and whatever else.
Yeah.
So how,
it's, if you're not flexible, then you're not living in the real world, is how I see it. And that doesn't mean you should abandon your principles or your goals and what you'd like to accomplish and how you'd like to go about accomplishing it. But you have to live in the real world. In the real world, very few people write for print publications anymore.
Yep. And
if they do, they're not on staff, or likely they're not on staff.
Yeah.
It's all, everything is in flux. I don't know how to say it better. Everything is in flux. And for Academy consideration, certainly that 1 week theater run, they if they're going to hold fast to that, then really good films are not going to qualify.
No, because again, everything being affected, you don't have film festivals happening in the traditional way. And what that means is that a filmmaker has to decide, do they want to hold their film until they do exist properly? And I say properly because part of the whole thing is if you're a distributor, that's the main purpose of film festivals in a general sense, is to find distribution and to find an audience. And
to build a reputation.
Yeah.
Based largely on critics.
Word of mouth. So if you see something at Sundance and again, remember, you're sitting in an audience, how is the audience reacting?
Right.
In the same way, just for a normal person, how do you react to things? Do you, what we love about seeing a movie in a theater when things are good, is having everybody around you enjoying themselves too. When everybody laughs, when you have a whole theater laugh at something.
Sure.
That's a great feeling.
But it's not just laughter, it's the vibe.
Yeah.
There is, filmmakers certainly know this.
Yeah.
And I often ask my filmmaker guests at class, can you tell? Or is there a moment early in the film where you can tell if the audience is with it or not? And they almost always have an answer to that.
And usually the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So again, if you're a filmmaker and you're trying to figure out, do I submit now? Do I hold my movie? Again, it's the
James Bond people held their movie for a year and a half.
Yep.
And they kept rescheduling release dates or reposting release dates on an optimistic basis.
Yeah. As did John Krasinski with Quiet Place 2. He held it for over a year. There are a number of people that did that. And as I say, what a difficult place to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
when you're trying to guess and you can't guess what's coming next. So I say it's to me, it's been a really fascinating, crazy time
Hmm.
to sort of see the shifts going on, and people trying to figure out what makes sense. You know, uh, always interesting. All right, let's do some questions real quick. What
Sure.
is your number one pet peeve or cliche that you are just tired of seeing in movies? I know what it is. 5 hours ago, 10 days later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
7 years ago,
In,
7 days later.
in an attempt to jettison linear storytelling, they've made linear storytelling such a verboten thing that every film opens and then says 1 week ago,
5 hours
5 hours earlier.
10 hours later.
Yeah.
They all do it. TV shows too now. They
Yeah.
all do it.
Yeah. They've created a new
Why?
cliche. They've replaced the old cliche with the new cliche.
Yep.
If indeed it was a cliche.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Geraldine Page, especially her 1978 Interiors Oscar nominated performance.
Great.
Did you ever interview / meet her?
No, sorry to say. I'm sorry to say that I did not have that opportunity.
He's saying a sidebar. Her daughter was working on a documentary about Page's career. Do you have any information?
No.
No, I don't know anything about it.
Love to know more about that.
Yeah, but that would be really interesting. Now that Daniel Craig has left James Bond, what would you like to see next from the franchise?
Oh, I don't know if I want a gimmick answer to that, and to me, a gimmick answer would be making a gender switch, unless they could justify it. I mean, they made a gender switch with M.
Yep.
Having Judi Dench step into that role.
Yep.
And that was a great call. And they justified it in the writing and in casting one of the world's greatest actresses.
Yeah.
That didn't hurt either.
If Judi Dench says yes,
yeah,
you just go with it.
I mean, I've heard Idris Elba mentioned a lot. He's a terrific actor.
But now they're saying he's too old, which is...
Yeah, well.
Sure. Whatever.
Yeah, well.
Whatever. What is your process for writing a review? Do you take notes? Do you have the review already in your mind? How do you approach it?
Well, it's a valid question. I don't write lengthy essay reviews. I tend to write concisely. I guess I got into that habit from writing those one paragraph summaries for my movie guide. But even now, I don't write a lengthy essay, so I don't take notes.
Mm-hmm.
You
used to.
Yeah, I used to when I wanted to write down a line of dialogue that tickled me, or that some aspect of the film I thought I might forget. I try to write a rough draft as soon as I can, when I get home that night or the next morning, when it is still very fresh in my mind. And no, I don't have a review in mind before going in.
And what's the other thing that you've started doing? Voice memos.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when we're at film festivals, if we're seeing a lot of stuff.
Yep. I can tell you, right, I come home at the end of the, or even in the middle of the day,
yep,
to our apartment or wherever we're staying, and I dictate into my iPhone. Very handy. Very, very handy. I don't have a review in mind, but if a film isn't good, I find myself wandering a little. My mind is wandering from the movie, and I'm starting to think about the review. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Not a good sign.
Yeah. And when I was writing for the book, it was a similar thing where you would get to a certain point in the film and go, yeah. I can hear in my head what I'm going to have to say about this is that it was... They tried hard. They gave it their all, and failed. No, you'll hear stuff like that sometimes in your head.
So what I want to do
you'll
most
start trying to figure out how you're going to phrase it.
What I want most from a movie is to pull me in and take me away.
Yep.
Take me on a journey and take me out of myself.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I'm happy. Doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah. A few people are asking about Ruthie Thompson, who just passed away. And they're asking if you met her. Funny story on that real quick. If you read her obit in The Guardian, a UK publication.
Which is now online.
The photo that they used is of Ruthie and my dad. except it doesn't say who they are. It doesn't say his name. But you had a friend send it to you, and I had a friend send it to me saying, your dad's with the, but it doesn't say his name anywhere. I go, yeah.
I think I met her when she was in her late 90s.
Yeah, young.
And she was kind of a goodwill ambassador for the motion picture home and hospital out in Woodland Hills, and has lived there for many, many years, lived there happily and healthfully for many, many years. And she and her memories were fortunately captured by
pretty solid,
more than one person.
Yeah.
And so thank God that we had her so long, and we had the benefit of her memory and her rather remarkable career, and which had different phases. You know, she was
she worked in many different departments over time, and of course worked on some of the, to this day, the most famous films that the Disney company put out.
She worked directly with Walt and Roy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the list of people who can say they did that, as we know, is getting shorter and shorter by the minute. But yeah, you'll see a lot of tributes to her. She meant a lot to a lot of people. And really, you know, it's a special person. It's a loss for us because we lose, again, another person who can give us a firsthand account of certain things.
Right.
But pretty solid life. Not bad, right?
Not bad.
Not bad.
I'll take 111.
Yeah.
If I know that I'm still there.
Yeah. 111 works for me. I'll settle for 111. All right. This is our last question. It's a very important one. I have a bet going with my sister, and I am hoping you can settle this for us. Which cup has the poison pellet, and which one has the brew that is true?
Oh, the vessel with the pestle has the
flagon with the dragon. The vessel with the pestle, the mortar with the...
No, the pellet with the poison.
If you don't know what we're talking about,
then you lose.
Then you lose. The Court Jester. You should watch The Court Jester because Danny Kaye is a legend. And
it's a great film, which I just got to introduce on Blu-ray.
Yep. Beautiful
new high def transfer on Blu-ray because it's in VistaVision, motion picture high fidelity. And Norman Panama and Melvin Frank, who wrote and directed it, also wrote but not directed the Red Skelton film, A Southern Yankee, which has a very similar kind of pattern setup.
Yes, Evan Bauman. Evan, by the way, loved the picture you took of my dad's book, and my mom says that seeing your name, all she can picture is you hiding behind your mom, and being together.
It's
which
a very little boy.
I love. And apparently you're not a child anymore. Who knew? He says we're missing the chalice from the palace. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. The flagon with the dragon, the vessel with the pestle is the brew that is true.
No.
It's a whole.
No.
Again.
That's why Danny Kaye is so good.
That's why you got to watch it. You have to watch Court Jester. I love Danny Kaye. I will kill for him. P.S. Just because Victoria mentioned it, there is a rumor going around that Michael Caine has retired. He has not retired. He's actually posted about the fact that he doesn't know why people are saying that he's retired. Remember, folks, that when you read the internet, it is the internet. And anyone can put anything they want out there. So until you hear it from the source, until you hear it from the person themselves, don't believe it. You have to make sure. Different people are doing the pellet with the poison is in the vessel with the pestle. The flagon with the dragon is the brew that is true. Yes. Everyone go watch Court Jester. There's never a bad time. It's a good way to spend your Sunday. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
We appreciate it so much.
All. We've made it through the first phase, apparently, of the pandemic, and we're not happy that it is still dragging on.
But we're happy to spend our Sundays.
We're happy to be with you, and we're looking forward to having at least one more listener.
We get one. You mean one more week?
Yeah.
Yes, we will still be here next Sunday, and then after that, we might have to take a break because I'm having a baby. But for now, we will see you next week. Again, everybody, please take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.